What is up, everybody? What is going on out there, Nick Noggs? Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Burn It Down with Kim Brown. I'm so happy and excited to see y'all's smiling faces up in the place. Of course, Burn It Down with Kim Brown. This is the spot where we set oppression ablaze and we talk about the issues that perhaps your mainstream media cable news network is too pussy to discuss. They say you shouldn't call things pussies anymore. I agree with that. Hey, drop it in the chat. What is a good word to use in lieu of pussy? Now here come Richie Sergenko in the fucking peanut gallery saying, over here trying to correct me. Listen, gang, hey, we have a fantastic, there goes Richie. Hey, before I even get a chance to introduce Richie, there he goes. Hey, what's going on, Richie Sergenko, People City Council? How you feel?
I'm sorry. I'm just always running my mouth and, you know, always got something to say. But I'm happy to be here with you. You know, you're one of my faves. So, and well, I feel like we always got something new to talk about too. Like we have the general advocacy work that you like to talk about, but every time I come on, it's just like we're always dealing with some bullshit.
Somebody's always fucking with you, Richie. That's because you out there doing the Lord's work. And that is what today's episode is about, in part. We're talking about deplatforming, y'all, and cancel culture. Now, we know cancel culture usually only works one way, in the sense that if it is a woman, particularly a Black woman or a femme or someone from a marginalized community, it is very easy for cancel culture to work in the way I suppose it is meant to work. And that is to discredit or tarnish the brand or perhaps even impact financially someone who is a public figure in some way, shape, or form. But deplatforming is a little different because I feel as though deplatforming is the corporate solution to cancel culture. And we know that Donald Trump had his Twitter account suspended permanently in recent days, almost 90 million followers. But what came after that was a so-called purge on Twitter, where we saw conservatives crying that they were losing followers by the thousands. However, what also came out of that Twitter social media purge is that a number of accounts on the left were also suspended and or temporarily deactivated. And that is where Richie comes into this conversation. And you all know Richie if you've been watching the show, Richie Sergenko from the People City Council. But later on in the program, we're going to be joined with one of my favorites, Kenneth Williams. He does communications for the activist organization in Detroit, Michigan called Detroit Action. But Kenny is also a writer at Blavity, and he's a culture critic. So we're going to be talking to Kenny about how cancel culture / deplatforming really impacts Black people more negatively than it does for, let's say, Donald fucking Trump. But Richie, we're joined with you today, and we're doing this a little bit out of order, so my apologies. But when you and I chatted last night, you told me that the People City Council Twitter account, which had 18,000 followers, which has been doing, as I said, God's work. And let me give the audience an example of the kind of work that the People City Council has on their Twitter page. Tunde, my dear, if we could, can we pull up that People City Council video? This was from November. The clip that we're about to see, you guys may have seen this before, but for people who have not, it is important that you see this. The week of Thanksgiving, Los Angeles Police Department, I can't remember if it was LAPD or the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, but one of the big law enforcement agencies.
It was actually California Highway Patrol.
Right.
Because no, I mean, it's not, it's an easy mistake, and it's a weird jurisdiction. It's because the houses were owned by the state, but go ahead.
Right. Thank you, Richie. I appreciate the correction, dear. Let's get our oinks correct. All right. Let's talk about the right oinkers, shall we? So this was California Highway Patrol. The week of Thanksgiving, gang, there was a collection of empty, abandoned homes owned by the state. To make a very long story short, unhoused residents claim these homes because there's a fucking pandemic raging in Los Angeles. There was some shelter available. They took it. I'm not mad at that. That sounds resourceful as fuck. So what actually happened was the California Highway Patrol were dispatched to remove these people from these homes by force during a pandemic and put them out on the street. Richie Sergenko and the People City Council were there. I want us to take a look at that footage, if we could, please, Mr. Tunde.
There's no weapons in the home.
Sonia, open the door for them.
That's illegal.
They're opening it right now.
He's quarantined.
Move out of the way, Sonia.
What do you need weapons for?
You have no weapons.
They're unarmed. They're unarmed. They're unarmed.
Fuck you! Fuck you! How fucking dare you! Fuck you! Yeah! Fuck you guys! Piece of fucking shit! Every single one of you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Get back! 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 Get out the way! Get out the way! Get out the way! Move, bitch! Get out the way! Get out the way, bitch! Get out!
I think some of y'all are MSNBC fans. Now, y'all may not admit it, but I think y'all be watching CNN and shit. And shame on you. But y'all didn't see that on CNN. I'm going to bet money that you didn't see that on CNN. And if it wasn't for Richie and other activists, independent journalists out there bearing witness, we may never know the full extent of the brutality that was imparted upon defenseless residents who had their homes entered into by force and who were removed by force, as I mentioned, during a pandemic in Los Angeles County when the pandemic is fucking out of control. Oh, and it was the week of Thanksgiving because, and so fuck them people, for real. But Richie, you know, you guys do such important work bringing to attention the failure of Los Angeles County's mayor, the mayor of Los Angeles, the city council, the elected city council, and how awful the conditions are in Los Angeles and how they continue to deteriorate. But let's go back to the Twitter account being suspended. Were you notified that the account perhaps had made some sort of violation of Twitter's terms of service? And when did you find out that the account had been restored?
So we were not made aware of why the account was suspended. The account was suspended late last Thursday. And we had spent, the entirety of the day tweeting out about how white supremacy runs rampant within our policing system, and that the Capitol Police and weren't going to stop the white supremacist insurrectionists, and it's because they're the Spider-Man meme and they're the same. And so we were tweeting about that, and then the last tweet that we put out was a video of an LAPD officer taking pictures at a local Stop the Steal rally in Los Angeles last week. The officer was maskless and the protesters were maskless. He was in uniform and he was taking pictures with these Trumpers. And who knows if that was the reason for the suspension? Twitter didn't let us know, but we know that LAPD spends thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars on people to monitor their social media. Potentially we could have been mass reported, but the account was down until last night, and it was only until we fortunately have amazing coalition partners like Cape Town for All, Black Lives Matter LA, People for Bernie. They all signed on to this digital organizing letter saying it's dangerous that the People's City Council account got taken down for reasons that we are not sure of. And we got an email last night from Twitter saying that they had made a mistake and our account appeared to not have broken any rules, but they didn't tell us what tweet or tweets could have triggered the suspension. But so last night, K-Town for All put out a press release on our behalf on Twitter, and it was drumming up a bunch of storm. We had a bunch of big name orgs and academics and influencers sign on. And fortunately, we were able to get the account back. But it was pretty scary last night that the account I thought at 8 p.m. The generic Democrat account is now permanently suspended, which I may have been operating on, and the PCC account was suspended at the same time. So I was so sad. But then at like 9 o'clock or so, a PCC member named Albert got notifications on his phone, was like, "Oh my God, the account's back." So yeah, that's how it went down.
Richie, how important is a platform like Twitter to be able to get out the message about the work that People's City Council is doing, that other organizations in Los Angeles are doing? If Twitter were to arbitrarily suspend you again, or God forbid, just decide to delete your account, right? For any reason. I mean, it is a corporation. Tragically, free speech is not protected on corporate platforms, as many on the right seem to think. But if you were to, again, lose these 18,000 followers, what kind of an impact would that make on your organizing?
Well, I think you made a great point earlier when you showed the video of El Sereno, right? And so that obviously wasn't a People's City Council planned action, but we had coalition partners that put out call to actions on social media, right? And so we saw that, and I saw that, and I headed up to El Sereno, and I was able to get that footage. And there were other activists that came throughout the night, and because we then started to amplify, saying that we were there, more people started to show up. And that's the kind of, platform that we have. We use Twitter, although it may seem memey or crudy at times, we use Twitter in a very specific manner. And it's a form of digital direct action, digital organizing, which is vitally important during COVID. We can't meet in person right now. There are things that we can do, though, to call attention to issues that we care about. So like participating in Twitter storms and getting, hashtags trending. We've trended #1 in the nation, and we trend #1 in Los Angeles pretty much any time that we do a concentrated effort on pushing a Twitter storm. And so that and then also today was the first day that Los Angeles City Council was back in session for 2021, and we live tweet all of the city council meetings, and people are able to follow along our live thread either during the meeting or later in the day, because these council meetings are inaccessible to people. They're able to come to our thread and read the thread and see what happened during the city council meeting. So there is like hella organizing that goes on Twitter. And it's a vitally important platform for us. And, just the final statement on that is that it's not that Twitter could have taken precautions earlier on Trump. It didn't need to get to a point with these white supremacists and QAnoners where Twitter needed to suspend Trump's account. They could have handled things differently for the past 5-6 years, deplatforming Nazis on there. So when people bring up censorship, it's a whole thing of like, yeah, but these social media companies should have acted more prudently for years, and now they're just doing it. And so that's something that we have to reckon with as well.
Well, my question is, and again, there are no really easy answers here. I don't feel as though this is sort of a cut and dry issue, because without question, Trump is fucking dangerous. Like, there's no beating around that bush when it comes to the way he dog whistles Nazis and white nationalists. And I hate to be one of those, I hate a both sides ass. I hate a devil's advocate ass motherfucker. Like, that's my worst. But for example, play devil's advocate, Eric Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles, groups like yours and along with other groups will show up at the mayor's house 6 a.m. and wake his ass up and let him know that he ain't shit, which I support. However, The mayor probably doesn't see it that way. And probably members of law enforcement, which you all rightfully point out are horribly racist, very dangerous to the community in Los Angeles. I mean, you have gone at Villanueva. I can't remember. Is Villanueva the LA?
Yeah.
He's the sheriff, right? Or is he the chief of LAPD?
Yeah, I posted his home address on Twitter, and that's what caught my original Twitter suspension.
Richie, I mean, is there a separate standard here for what left activists do versus what the white nationalists say? I'm sorry to even ask that question, but I got to.
Oh, of course. I mean, you know, the things that we've caught violations for, like posting publicly available addresses of elected officials, that's not doxing. They're not private citizens. We don't post anything that would release the information of private citizens. You know, these are elected officials. Their information under the Brown Act in California is publicly available information. And so Twitter, yeah, it has its own platform, but those are the things that we've caught warnings for or suspensions. We've also caught a 1 week suspension for, there was a right-wing journalist, I think his name is like Kalen something. He was attending protests in Los Angeles, and he was following protesters around, trying to catch them on camera, doing something potentially illegal. So we warned people that night, and LAPD actually ended up using one of their videos to say, hey, we're looking for these suspects. And we quote tweeted that and said, if you see this dude, Kalen, at a protest, then you know what to do, right? That could mean a variety of things. Most explicitly, get the fuck away from this dude because he's trying to catch you doing something. But Twitter said that was an implied threat and suspended us for a week. But there are fucking Nazis on, legit white supremacist Nazis on, you know, Kim, you're a black woman. That kind of shit has been happening to marginalized communities for years, for the entirety of Twitter's platform, right? And they haven't taken the necessary steps to combat that. And so, like, Andy fucking whatever the guy's name in Oregon, he releases contact information of protesters that get arrested. That is a direct conflict to what we've gotten suspended for posting public information of elected officials. And so there's definitely, you know, it's applied differently. And Twitter wants to be like both sides. And so they equate, you know, community activists to fucking Nazis.
And I think that is where the line clearly has been drawn, or really not been drawn, because People City Council account was suspended. Your account was suspended. Our good friend Johnny J out in Los Angeles told us about the Native magazine account that had been suspended. This is an online digital space targeted for Indigenous people, and they're not very political. Like, I think they talk mostly about Indigenous culture. They got suspended, but has since been reinstated. So it seemed as though lefty people got caught up in this white nationalist purge. And it's like, Twitter, y'all are some real dickheads if you really think that these factions are similar at all. So I mean, Richie, what to do about what corporations determine is dangerous speech, I think is the ground that we find ourselves in here, because I don't support Trump ever at all about anything, but I'm not quite sure if I agree with Twitter doing this at this point in time. To me, it was extremely cowardly for Twitter to wait until the final 2 weeks. You wait until he's got 2 weeks left in office, all the dangerous shit that he has tweeted from his massive account, and Twitter, like cowards, waits until the very final moment, at least seemingly, of his administration to get rid of him. In your opinion, Richie, should Trump be reinstated to Twitter? Is this a chilling of speech issue?
Well, it depends, because how many times did he violate the Twitter terms of service? You know, he seemingly they had to fucking put warnings on every single tweet that he posted during the the week of the election, because he just fucking lying about election results. I mean, so I'm not sure if his account should come back, because he blatantly abused those terms of services. Your point of them waiting until this week, he abused those terms of services for years, right? For years and years and years, especially leading up to the election, on the election. So they could have done it then. So, right, it's cowardly of them to wait till the last 2 weeks. They could have done it at any time, and I'm not sure if he should get his account back. You know, he's the fucking Grand Wizard, so I'm not sure if the Grand Wizard should have a Twitter platform, especially in the way that he's abused it.
100%.
But to your point, like, these big tech companies are unregulated. Like, there is like one thing, Section 30, that's the only thing that like kind of abides big tech companies. And they're just like, nothing is going to fucking happen in this country if left up to politicians on their own. Like, this has been an issue for so long. Big tech companies buy Democrats and Republicans. Google spends hella money, even on liberals, because they don't want to be regulated. YouTube doesn't want to be regulated. Facebook doesn't want to be regulated. So, you know, getting big money out of politics, that's one way to do it. But figuring out how to regulate big tech will be something that needs to be done, because, you know, it shouldn't have gone to this point on Twitter. That's my thing. Like, it shouldn't have gone to this point.
Mm-hmm. Richie, I appreciate, first of all the work that you do, the times that you have been courageously out there braving not only a pandemic that is raging in your community, but braving police brutality in order to bring us the real deal of what is happening in Los Angeles. So, and I appreciate you making some time to be with us today to share your experience about how social media platforms can arbitrarily delete your speech if they don't like what you have to say. And I hope you get the account that you might have been tweeting from back. But I'm so happy that the People's City Council has been reinstated. Everybody go follow People's City Council LA on Twitter. We've been speaking with activist and organizer Richie Sergenko. Richie, thank you.
I appreciate you, Kim, as always. Keep holding it down, and I look forward to talking to you soon, whether it's on here or via text or Twitter. Appreciate you always inviting us on, and they'll probably keep fucking with us, so we'll probably have more things to talk about as we go forward.
Yes, they will definitely keep fucking with you, Richie.
Also,
yes.
I know you're kicking me off right now, but this can be for another discussion. I got fucking $5,000 of parking tickets from the city of Los Angeles, and they tried to tag my car being in a spot that it wasn't in, and saying I was at cross streets that I could have never been at because I was at a protest on foot. And I was on foot because I got fucking ran over that day. My foot got ran over that day. And LAPD gave me like 16 different tickets with my license plate saying I was at a spot that I wasn't in. So since I didn't get that ticket, I was never aware that I received it, so I didn't check until months later, and all late fees on all 15 tickets had gone to the max, $300 a piece, and I had $5,000 due to the state because of these parking tickets. Anyways, they don't stop fucking with me.
No, that's shameful. I mean, that's clearly a way that the state is targeting you and letting you know that they don't like what you do, they don't like what you say. Clearly, they have not been able to arrest you. So this is the way that they choose to wear you down. They're going to fine you to death. They're going to nickel and fucking dime you to death, Richie. If you have a GoFundMe, will you send that to me? I'm gonna throw some bucks away, because I mean, fuck this shit. You can't. I mean, nah, bro. Like we're not gonna let it go down that way, Richie.
My lawyers is handling it because obviously that is not appropriate, and I should not be facing any of these. But I appreciate you willing to donate. But yeah, they're gonna. This is the story of America, and I'll end it on this. Dr. Melina Abdullah, co-founder of Black Lives Matter LA. You know, I was talking to her and I was complaining about what the cops did to me. And then I had to take a step back and be like, oh, wait, your house got fucking swatted. And she had the district attorney's husband pull a gun on her. And there have been she gets the wrath of white supremacists on social media. So yeah, I'm facing this issue, but I'm a white dude, and there are other organizers in Los Angeles that get it worse than me.
See, y'all, you see why I like Richie? Richie don't need shit explained to him. He gets it. He gets it. Thank you, Richie, for being so keenly aware of, even though you're being fucked with, you understand, where you rank in terms of social hierarchy, and you understand that people of a different gender and of a different color get it worse than you. But they still should not be fucking with you. But I gotta let you go because Kenny is standing by.
Yes. Bye, Kim. Love you. Appreciate you. Talk soon.
Mwah. Thank you, Richie. All right, y'all. Richie Sergenko, People City Council. Please follow them on Twitter. Geez, Twitter was trying to get Richie and them up out of here, but no, they do extremely important work. And as you saw from that video clip, that we have people out here, activists, journalists, who are bearing witness to shit that the local news and national news is not reporting. There is so much state-targeted abuse happening in this country, in every single city, in every single state. So if there's some crazy shit happening where you live, please tell Genevieve. She's womaning the comments section right now. I guess I gotta stop saying she's manning the comments. She is handling the comments right now. So drop them in there, y'all. We are always here for stories. And hold on, Genevieve, do me a favor. Drop the Gmail in the chat. Y'all can email us, by the way. We would absolutely love to hear from you. I don't remember what the Gmail is, which is why I'm not telling it to you. But you can also follow us on Twitter at BurnItDownKB. And of course, you're watching already on YouTube. Hold on. Today, is Kenny around? Because if he's not, it's okay. I can chat for a few minutes with my friends. Okie dokie, no problem. So we do have some comments from the comments. Genevieve, like I said, my very capable producer, is handling shit down because she is a boss. Okay, Microsoft Word technician, friend of the show. What do you have to say, Microsoft Word technician support? Word technical support. Sorry, I'm not the best reader. Microsoft Word technical support says, to me, it's a systemic issue. I have no problem Trump being removed for what he did or said, but there has to be a set of rules universally applied. And that is the problem. These rules are not being universally applied. Microsoft Word technical support also goes on to say these things need to be democratic and public ownership. Agreed. These tech companies, especially Facebook, especially Google, way too big for their britches, and they have way too much control. Human Love Solidarity says moderators delete comments in live chat. What's the difference? Well, I would kind of agree. I mean, if we're talking about Trump, I guess the difference is, as Richie correctly pointed out, that he has violated Twitter's terms so egregiously and so many times, and so many of those times Twitter just let the shit slide. Like Twitter just shook the shit off, like, oh, he's trying to start a war with Iran from his cell phone. Oh, well, fuck it, we don't give a shit. Like, oh, okay, oh, y'all don't care about that. Interesting. Let's see, what else do we have from the comments? Mike Sadison. Mike says, censorship is concerning, but the promotion of content by channeling views to certain posters or topics for profit and manipulation is even more dangerous. But this is difficult to see and to call out. You guys, every single one of these media companies, be them social media tech companies or the mainstream news outlets, they profited off Trump. Y'all, how much money have they made off Trump even before he was elected? If you watch the show, I have played clips of it before, but going back to 2011, when fucking CNN stopped their regular news coverage to go to a Trump press conference. Mind you, he was not president. He was not even running for president at the time, but they went to Trump live for him to detail the findings of his private investigator who had been sent to Hawaii to discover whether or not Barack Obama was actually born here. Mainstream media and cable news bear a lot of responsibility for the rise of Donald Trump. They fed him with so much free airtime, very little pushback, And he was talking all this coded white nationalist shit, and they just kept going with it. Why? Because Trump is good for ratings. Les Moonves, who used to head up CBS, said it. Trump is good for ratings. Every single one of your late night show hosts, talk show hosts, Colbert, who the fuck else? Fallon. Do y'all watch Jimmy Fallon? The ghetto. I'm sorry. Fallon. Who else? Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of every single night of their shows are dedicated to a Donald Trump roundup. So I don't want to hear no shit from none of these mainstream outlets about how they are so appalled now by Donald Trump. Brilliant. Thank you, Brother Tunde. And when we talk about deplatforming Trump, you know, Trump is still a rich fucker, y'all. Trump's going to Mar-a-Lago and going to chill. So Trump is not really being harmed by this. But when Black women, Black femmes, people of color, LGBTQ plus people get deplatformed, it can be quite devastating to reputations, to potential paid opportunities, and, you know, to people's careers. And to talk about this side of it, and whether or not people should be canceled, and what are the circumstances under which people should be canceled. I'm so excited. We are joined today with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth handles communications. He's the communications manager for the group Detroit Action. He is also a culture critic and a writer for Blavity News. And I'm very excited to have nobody other than Kenny Alsay on the program with me. Kenny, look at you, looking so adorable. How are you? Thank you so much for making the time to be here.
Thank you so much for having me, Kim. Happy New Year. I'm always excited to chat with you and be invited on. It's been a crazy week or so with, you know, the events that have happened at the Capitol, shall we say. So thank you for having me.
Listen, I live a mile from DC, honey. Let me tell you, it's fucking bonkers around here. People are nervous. People are afraid. People who live here are very concerned about what this week's events and next week's events in particular are going to bring, but that is a whole nother conversation. But I'm sure maybe you heard part of what Richie and I were talking about. Richie being part of the People's City Council, dealing with their Twitter account being suspended for unknown reasons. Thankfully, it was restored. But I wanted to talk about what happens when people from marginalized communities get deplatformed, usually for far fewer reasons, far less egregious reasons than what Trump and these white nationalists are being removed from social media for. Talk to me about your thoughts about that, and perhaps how you have seen people impacted by either having their social media accounts deactivated or outright suspended for saying the truth, but things that are certainly does not rise to the level of deleting someone's account. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, I did hear a little bit of the conversation before I had stepped in, and you know who immediately comes to mind when I think about people who, you know, from marginalized communities who are, you know, who the other side tries to kind of deplatform when they're not happy. I think of Representative Cynthia Johnson. She's a Democrat, and I think she presides over Detroit, if I'm not mistaken, but she was getting death threats, I believe, from Trump supporters and white supremacists all over because of her work, I think, for the certification of the election. She was getting so many death threats from around the way, and Republicans, they got mad at her. They tried to censor her and deplatform her because she went on her Facebook Live and she was addressing the situation as she should, and as it was her right to do, and they tried to deplatform her. So it's just interesting how swift and quick the Republicans were to try to deplatform this Black woman who was defending herself and who was addressing all these death threats on her life and her family and whatnot. But it's interesting that it took this long for Trump to be deplatformed. It took 4 years, and he's caused the instantation of, you know, clearly a whole attempted coup at the Capitol. You know, so many things he, you know, through his bigotry and whatnot. So it's just interesting that there's a quickness to deplatform people from marginalized communities as opposed to this raging white supremacist who's had 4 years to use the country as his playground. And now the blood of democracy is on his hands. Now, all of a sudden, you have these social media networks saying, hey, maybe we should censor him. You should have been censored him. So,
and I think a lot of it comes from who is on the receiving end of such attacks, right? We know that Black women, especially visible Black women, suffer an unending amount of abuse on social media, and they have been complaining loudly and often to Twitter, to Jack, letting them know that, hey, y'all need to deal with these motherfuckers, okay? But it wasn't until the halls of power were attacked, then all of a sudden Twitter took things seriously. But I'm so glad you referenced the Congresswoman from Michigan, because I want us to also sort of look at this from another perspective of how this happens in professional life, in politics especially. Now, Kenny, wait, so they put me and Kenny up at the same time so I can see Kenny's face. There we go. I got to see that. If you look at them teeth, woo! That's a pretty boy. But let me tell y'all. So that Kenny, now I know you were a little baby, a tiny baby, but 10 years ago, there was a woman who used to work for the Department of Agriculture. Her name was Shirley Sherrod. Now, all my 40 and over people in the chat know exactly who I'm talking about, Shirley Sherrod. Shirley Sherrod had the misfortune of having a video that a speech that she gave prior to the NAACP. Mind you, I'm talking about 2010 now. A clip of this video was discovered by none other than Andrew Breitbart when the demon was still walking the earth. Andrew Breitbart really came to prominence because of the Shirley Sherrod video. And, you know, she really had a lot of repercussions to deal with behind this video. I want us to cut to this CNN clip from 2010 to sort of put things in perspective and refresh some of y'all's memories if perhaps you had forgotten about this. This happened under the Obama administration. Tunde, if we could check out that video about Ms. Sherrod.
Here's part of the YouTube clip that set off the firestorm.
Here I was faced with having to have a white person say their land. So I didn't give him the full force of what I could do.
USDA official Shirley Sherrod admitting in remarks at an NAACP event that she did not do everything she could to help a white farmer, that she took him to a white lawyer so, quote, his own kind would take care of him. Conservative news outlets pounced. NAACP headquarters Monday called her actions shameful, and her bosses at the Department of Agriculture forced her to resign. But were they quick to judge? She says yes.
No, I did not discriminate against him. And in fact, I went all out. I had to frantically look for a lawyer at the last minute because the first lawyer we went to was not doing anything to really help them.
We did some fact checking. The incident in question happened more than 2 decades ago. Sherrod was not working for the government at the time, but a nonprofit called the Federation of Southern Cooperatives Land Assistance Fund. And the internet clips were heavily edited. And what about not doing enough to help the white farmer because he seemed to have a, quote, superior attitude? Eloise and Roger Spooner credit her for helping save their farm.
I know she did. Yep. There's no doubt in my mind.
We give her credit.
That's right.
We said she
certainly did. I'll give her all the credit.
So why did she say the things that she did? Sherrod says in her speech she was reflecting on the past, the moment when she realized black and white farmers were facing the same plight.
This was my first time dealing with trying to help a white farmer save his land. I wasn't really sure of what I could do because at that time I thought they had the advantages. I learned that that was not the case in working with this farmer.
The head of the nonprofit where Sherrod worked for more than 2 decades says that over the years she has helped all kinds of people.
Certainly she is not a racist. She did not discriminate against the woman and the family that she helped. And this was 26 years ago. Shirley has always been a very dedicated person, dedicated to helping people, you know, and that is in regards to race, color, kind, or whatever.
But the USDA is not backing down, citing its zero-tolerance policy.
When I saw the statements and the context of the statements, I determined that it would make it difficult for her to do her job as a rural development director and that it would potentially compromise our capacity to close the chapter on civil rights cases. I didn't want anything to jeopardize her job in terms of getting the job done and getting people to work in Georgia.
Now, bear in mind that the person who forced Shirley Sherrod to resign in the wake of that incident was Tom Vilsack, who was also Joe Biden's nominee to also head up the same department, the Department of Agriculture. Kenny, again, I don't expect you to remember that. If you do remember it, I'd be incredibly impressed because you were probably like in the second grade. But I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop making jokes about your youth, honey. That's just what happens when you turn for a middle age. Everyone's a baby who's under 30. But so what happened was, the white supremacist website Breitbart seized upon this video, taken out of context to paint Ms. Sherrod in a bad light, and everybody ran with it. The right wing ran with it. Her bosses ran with it. Eventually, she was received apologies from the Obama White House and from Tom Vilsack because they overreacted. But it just goes to show you how quickly motherfuckers will jump on a Black woman, even without all of the facts. Why is it that it is so much easier? Why are we so easily canceled, really, without justification or without proper cause? Like, because people can apologize after the fact all they want. The damage had already been done. What's your take on that, babe?
Well, I think that it's because this country holds white men to, I think this country is so gung-ho on holding white men and white women, white people, period, to this angelic standard. And I'll just be honest, the country, the country doesn't love Black women. The country doesn't love Black men, but the Black woman is the most unprotected person in America, like Malcolm X said. So I think this sounds so unfortunate, but they just don't care how they would if the person was white. I guess it's easy for them to try to cancel a Black woman because they don't already care about Black women. But when it comes to canceling a white man or a white woman, let's compare white women and Black women. It would be much easier to cancel a Black woman because they hold these white mediocre women to like these extremely high standards. And it's a bias, those are internal biases that are unfortunate. And you see it all the time. And I'm gonna go to pop culture for like a reference, but you take somebody like Beyonce, who is this Black woman, this superstar, this megastar. She's a Black woman, and you take one of her peers who's around the same age and who's been in the industry for such a long time, like Britney Spears, for example. So every time elections come around, you notice how you'll see think pieces or tweets and Instagram posts asking Beyonce, well, Beyonce, why didn't you endorse so-and-so? Why didn't you tweet about this, months ago? You could have saved the election. But, nobody ever asked Britney Spears about that. Nobody ever asked Madonna about that. You know what I'm saying? Why is it on Black women to save democracy and to save this country? You know what I'm saying? Especially when, what we've seen in history so far, this country doesn't value Black women, but it's interesting that they expect y'all to save the world. Like, am I making sense? I'm sorry if I'm just rambling.
Make complete sense. You make total sense. And listen, everyone that's watching right now, please tell Beyonce that Kenny is out here riding for his queen. Okay? Nobody even mentioned Beyonce. Kenny's like, and by the way, they be out here fucking with Beyonce. But
it's annoying.
Valid though. Nobody asked Britney Spears what in the fuck she thinks about the election. Nobody ever asked Britney Spears no shit like that. But yes, Beyonce, there is an expectation on certain celebrities more so than others. I want to pivot, if we could, Kenny, because I want to rely on your culture critic expertise and your perspective here. Because when we talk about canceling and deplatforming, and also that Black women are the least protected, the situation that happened late last year with rapper Megan Thee Stallion being shot by another rapper, Tory Lanez, and having to, number one, justify her anger and fury and disappointment in Tory Lanez. But and again, if there are older people in the chat like myself, y'all know who Megan Thee Stallion is. She is that woman that you cannot take your eyes off of her no matter what she is doing. If she is reading the phone book, you are staring at Megan Thee Stallion. Read that phone book. But pop up that tweet for me if you could, Tunde, because I felt as if this poster made a very good point about who should be canceled and when, and having a lot to do with what Tory Lanez did in his behavior after the fact, and how a lot of his apologists reacted. Now, Tunde, I cannot read that. Make that bigger. Come on now. Auntie don't have her glasses on. All right. Now, thank you, sir. this young person who is a regular Twitter person, I think their bio describes themselves as like a super college student. So don't go bother this person, please, randomly. But Socialing says, I need people to collectively understand that deplatforming celebrities who have been emotionally and physically violent towards Black women is one of the easiest ways you can tangibly support us right now. And they're quote tweeting, do not watch Tory's live, referencing Tory Lanez, who I think, again, has behaved like a whole shithead during this entire situation with Megan Thee Stallion. He is facing criminal charges of which he has pled not guilty. And Megan, gracefully, I suppose, has held her tongue largely about the situation. Kenny, I don't supporting abusers, of course. I keep mentioning how old I am. I must have a thing about it. But anyway, I came up in Black urban radio in the early 2000s when I was simply appalled by the fact that by the time I was in radio in 2000, 2001, R. Kelly's sex tape, rather his tape raping young teenage girls, had been well circulated in the streets. And I was aghast at how radio still continued to play his records. His record companies still continue to support him and produce his music, and concert promoters still continue to book R. Kelly in the wake of him being a very obvious sexual predator targeting young Black girls. How, or rather, is this where cancel culture sort of preempts deplatforming, right? Because R. Kelly wasn't deplatformed with any serious degree until the community in mass finally stood up and says, we are not accepting this sexual predator as one of our beloved entertainers anymore. How does that work in your opinion? Or explain to me the difference between cancel culture and deplatforming, if there is a difference from your perspective.
Yeah. And I want to say that I want to give a quick little story about the Megan Thee Stallion incident that happened where, Tory Lanez, he allegedly shot her. So I had wrote about that for Blavity. I wrote a piece about supporting and standing up and showing up for Black women. And I used this situation with Megan as an example, in the story, like we need to show up for Black women. Like we need to cancel this abuser. So when that was posted, like so many Tory Lanez anarchists, I guess, if you will, came into my DMs. They were saying like these horrible, disgusting things to me, threatening me and things like that. And it was in my comments and stuff like it just exploded. And Tory Lanez, he also posted my article along with several other articles by major publications too, and some collage on Instagram, and accused us of being on some sort of payroll, which is interesting in itself because, as you know, Kim, I work at a nonprofit. Nobody, I'm on nobody's payroll except Detroit Action and Blavity. But anyway, so I think the difference between cancel culture and deplatforming is, I feel like cancel culture is more of a cultural thing in a community where we collectively say, hey, this person is clearly not an addition to our culture. They're dragging us down by causing harm to people within our culture. And I think it's this collective decision to just cancel people. And I think deplatforming, in my opinion, is something a little bit more formal, still taking like that cancel culture, but I think it's a little bit more formal, whereas, publications or platforms start to get involved. And honestly, I would consider that more mainstream because I think I feel like cancel culture is this thing where we're like, okay, you're not good for the Black community. You're homophobic, you're anti-Black, you're sexist, so we're going to cancel you. But I think deplatforming is when, that person starts to, this sounds so bad, but like offend white people. And then they're like, oh my goodness, now we're offended. Now the Beckys, the Johns, and the Tommys, and the Karens are offended. So we're going to take them off the platform because white people are harmed by this person.
Kenny, help Auntie out. What is the name of that Black movie director? First name Nate, who had produced the story about good gracious, I'm drawing the biggest blank. I smoke entirely too much marijuana. Please forgive me. About the slave uprising in Virginia. He produced two movies, and he was accused of sexual assault, or at least he had been reported to have been raped a young woman in college, and the young woman eventually committed suicide. His name, there's so many Nates, and
It's
I'm
Nate
trying.
Parker. He directed Birth of a Nation, right? Yeah, Nate
Thank
Parker.
you so much.
It's
Nate Parker, silly Tunde. Look, it's Parker. Tunde's in here trying to give me bad information. No, but you're talking about Nat Turner. Nat Turner was the figure of whom Birth of a Nation, the movie, was based upon. But Nate Parker was the director. And to me, to memory, like that is like the only successful cancellation of a man who did not end up going to jail. Because I think Bill Cosby did get successfully canceled, but for God's sakes, he raped damn near a whole college campus before he was brought to heel. So I think people were like, okay, well, we can't accept Bill Cosby anymore under any circumstances. But the director, never faced any criminal consequences. And I don't even know if his story even made it to like white America. I think this was something that like Black America kind of handled internally. Are you familiar with this situation?
Yeah, briefly. I remember the case, but I don't, and I remember cancel culture taking a part in that, and which probably explains why it was kind of hard for me to remember him. Right. But I remember a little bit.
Because it was successful. Nate Parker is the one, and I'm sure there are people in the comments who have opinions about that. But here we are approaching the top of the 6 o'clock hour. Kitty, I'm gonna let you go, dearest. I certainly appreciate you making some time. And do me a favor, I'm a follow Blavity. I feel like Blavity is a millennial thing, and I feel like I'm a little bit out of touch for Blavity. But if it's your stuff, I am interested in it. So by all means, we want to have you on again, because we're going to have these sort of cultural conversations and how they overlapped with societal issues as well. So of course, I would love to have you on again. We love the 313. We love Detroit. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I love y'all too. And Kim, is always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Kenneth Williams, communications manager for Detroit Action. Follow him. He also is a writer and a culture critic for Blavity. Listen, gang, that is our time. I want to thank you all for making some time to be in the comments. Hold on. I know Jean-Vieve has been sending me some comments. Don't forget, guys, to like and subscribe. And I'll thank everybody for getting us over that 1,000 subscriber mark. And I know in the scheme of the YouTube universe, 1,000 subscribers is not a lot. I'm personally over the moon to have 1,000 people subscribing to the show. Also, go back and look at the interview that I posted this morning or yesterday. I don't know what day it is, about the Wilmington coup of 1898. If you want some echoes about where the Trump people, you want to talk about some people channeling their ancestors, baby. All them racist Trumpers were channeling their racist forefathers and foremothers from Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898, where there was a successful coup d'etat, where the duly elected government of Wilmington, North Carolina, called the Fusion government, was overthrown, and there was a massacre in the town of Black people. Black people got ran out of there. Black people got their belongings taken. It was a horrible event, but it was not what happened at the Capitol last week. Not the first time a white supremacist coup has been tried on American soil. By all means, please go to the YouTube page and check out that interview. We spoke with the director of the documentary Wilmington on Fire. His name is Christopher Everett. And we also spoke with author Blake Hill Saya. She wrote about Durham, North Carolina's Black Wall Street. Fascinating conversation. Marcus Farrell and Tori Brown are also on that episode too. Where am I? Going to Slack. Let's see. Jean-Vieve has the comments ready and standing by. Thank you, Jean-Vieve. Nate Parker, girl. I was about to say Nate Dogg. I was going to say Nate Robinson. I'm like, God damn, there's a lot of Nates. Raina Simone says, Tory, Chris Brown, and many other prominent Black men still have their entire careers after abusing Black women. It's horrible. It is so terrible. Oh my gosh. And I feel bad. Listen, when the whole Chris Brown beating up Rihanna thing came out, I felt so bad, number one, for Rihanna, but for also all her young fans, especially her women fans, who were hearing how she was getting blamed for having a black eye, right? And it just set a terrible precedent of accepting abusive, horrible behavior for our partners and from our young ladies. Devastating that Chris Brown has been able to still hang around and make money when he is a whole piece of shit. Afra Singh says, oh, please censor his ass. I'm pretty sure she's talking about Trump. Cancel, bye-bye. This censorship talk is such BS. He's a damn tyrant. They have just created an even bigger beast. Thank you, my dear Afra. You're 100. Listen. Trump, I agree. This is really not a free speech issue. You don't have free speech on a corporate platform. You don't. You can go outside and get you a soapbox and stand on it. All the free speech in the world. But no, unfortunately, these corporations have the ability to say who gets to have a say on their platform and who does not. Okay, is that all the comments? I think that's all the comments, boys and girls. You guys have hung out with us again for another episode of Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Join us on Friday. I'm keeping an eye on this impeachment stuff. I don't know. Mike Pence said he does not want any part of the 25th Amendment. Mike Pence said, leave him out this shit. Don't even, Mike Pence ain't even answering his phone when he sees Nancy Pelosi. He's like, decline. He's like, listen, they already hung a noose outside the Capitol with my name on it. Mike Pence said he don't want no parts of telling Trump no. So it's really going to be beholden upon the congressional Democrats and what they are able to do. But I still feel like they are giving the Republicans too many options when it comes to Trump, because Nancy Pelosi keeps going, okay, we're going to give you one last shot to invoke the 25th Amendment or else. And it's like, all right, Nancy, quit or else. And these motherfuckers, like, they don't care. Actually, I think the Republicans want the Democrats to do this because the Republicans are afraid. The establishment Republicans, that is, understand that they have unleashed a beast in all this white nationalism that they clearly cannot control. And the only one that has control over them is Trump. So they still do not want to be on Trump's bad side because Trump has got a whole goon squad equipped with bombs, long guns, cops, elected officials. Like, the Trump army is something else. And the Republican establishment wants no parts of it. So I don't know if Democrats are going to have the temerity to actually execute and go through with this impeachment. But I don't think we've seen the last of Trump. And let me leave y'all with this. Even if Trump is precluded from holding federal office again, which I believe is the consequence of him being impeached twice, although I could be mistaken about that because I think that actually has to be a separate vote about whether or not he can hold federal office again. That MAGA 2024 brand is still going to be real strong. You know why? Because Ivanka, I'm putting that out to Ivanka. They're going to put Ivanka right there. Ivanka Trump, they don't have to change the branding. Ivanka is, the white nationalist male fantasy, this tall, leggy blonde, who has questionable taste in men. Ivanka is perfect for this. And Trump has been grooming her, taking her to state dinners and letting her sit in on negotiations, etc. Yeah, they ready for Ivanka to fill them shoes. So don't think that just because Trump is out of it, that the Trumps and all that they represent are out of it. So join us again here on Friday. Tell your friends to tell a friend, like, subscribe, share, and we will see y'all in a couple of days. Thank y'all for watching. See y'all later. Bye-bye.